my name is Vanu. I am with Aplusify. We are a Salesforce managed services company that specializes in nonprofits. And part of what we like to do is really help nonprofits add to their technical capabilities so you can make the most out of your CRM, specifically Salesforce. And we have worked with Salsa, with many different types of clients in the nonprofit realm, and feel like it's a great software for nonprofits to use. And we wanted Rachel to join us today to talk to us a little bit more about Salsa and also the life cycle for any of the supporters that you are trying to nurture. So Rachel, on to you.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Vanu. Hi, everybody. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right, perfect. Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to chat those in. And if I need to stop or pause, you can let me know. But today we're talking about managing the supporter life cycle. A little bit on myself. Some of you here, if you're existing Salsa clients, you may have heard from me before or maybe even have seen me, but I'm the partner manager here at Salsa. I've been with Salsa for 6.5 years now, which is pretty incredible to even be saying, but I've held a couple different roles, most recently being this partner manager position, which I really enjoy getting to work with other companies that help support nonprofits and mutual clients that we have. And I'm also involved here with a local animal rescue. I got my first rescue dog in November, so we're coming up in 1 year. I used to have a picture of her, but I took that out. I should add that back in. Her name is Mia. And then a couple years ago, I attained my MBA from Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh, PA, which is where I'm located. And if anybody needs to contact me for any reason, my email address is there too, so feel free to get in contact if you need any assistance. Quick agenda for today's presentation. We'll be doing an intro, high level, sort of just posing this to everybody. Of course, probably going into each of these stages could be a whole presentation on itself, but we'll be talking about overall managing the supporter life cycle. Who exactly are these supporters that we're talking about? You'll hear the phrase connect, engage, and convert. And we've got a nice little graphic that you can hopefully take a mental snapshot of and reference back to that as you go about just managing your supporters in day-to-day business. And then also looking for tools that help make this happen. And just a little snapshot here of some clients that we're really proud of to have here using Salsa. Of course, we like all of our clients that use Salsa, and then these are just some of the big names that we're proud to have on our client stack. A little snapshot here too, just on why Salsa is qualified to even be talking about these things. We help clients retain donors, increase productivity, you can see that there, efficiency, donations increasing, emails being sent out, all that good stuff that Salsa Engage just helps our clients do more efficiently, easier, without having to have that really intense background of technology that everyone doesn't have, like myself. Next slide here. So this was that graphic that I was talking about that you'll see throughout this presentation. And really the theme is that retention is at the center here, and surrounding that is to connect, engage, and convert. And it's an ongoing process. It doesn't stop. The process is different for groups of clients, so not everyone will fall under the exact same tactics that you use. I'm sure you've heard other partners out there speaking, and even yourself, that segmenting your supporters is really important. You can't use the same messaging for all of your supporters, and so that's really what it's all about. At the 30,000 foot view, I would say this is the picture to remember: connect, engage, and convert. And at the center of that, why it's all important is retaining your donors. On the next slide here, you can see who are your supporters. Sometimes when people say supporters, they automatically think people who have donated. And it's not necessarily people who are donating, because people are giving their time, they're giving their attention, maybe they're even sharing on social media for you. So they're actually, networking a little bit for your organization. And that's important to keep in mind too, that supporters, it's not just people who give money, it's people who are invested and interested in your organization in a number of different ways. Attending events, volunteering, running their own peer-to-peer events. Those are all types of supporters that you need to consider when thinking about managing the life cycle. So what I'm going to do in these next couple of slides is break down each piece of that graphic that we saw earlier. And at the top, it was about connecting. And that's really the first way that we start to manage the process, is how do we get in touch with these supporters? Many different ways. Peer-to-peer conversation. So maybe it's not just you as the organization connecting with the supporter. It might be one of your volunteers, one of your board members, even one of your employees too, talking to their friends and family in conversation, and that's how they're able to be connected with you. So there's peer-to-peer conversation, needs and services based. Of course, the people who are actually using the services that your nonprofit is using. Social services, education services, whatever it may be, those people are supporters too. Volunteers, like we mentioned, they can be people who have volunteered at past physical events that you've had. Obviously that's probably the most popular type of volunteer, but there can be other ways that people volunteer. I know at the local shelter here, people are still walking dogs, even though it's not necessarily an event, but they're still volunteering and taking those dogs out for walks, or they're going in and caring for the animals that they have, the cats and the rabbits and things like that. Active outreach, you can do all types of different supporter cultivation, Facebook ads, social media is one of the biggest ones that we see here today. So you're actually going out and intending to connect, right? Proactive outreach to your supporters or potential supporters in that case. And then organic search, there might be a sub bullet underneath here that says it's the Google searching that people do. Even on social media, Instagram, you can have the activity. So if you like or you're interacting with certain posts, Instagram and Facebook have those algorithms where they'll start to present the user with things that they might be interested in. So they could be searching for you, or they might just happen upon one of your posts, one of your public posts that you've done, because they've interacted with other things that are similar. So many different ways to connect. It keeps broadening. I'm sure the options here are actually limitless, because you never know the new ways that supporters end up finding your organization. So that's connecting, and that's really the big piece. And then next in our cycle is to engage. And the theme here is that not one size fits all, and you've heard that many, many times before, especially if you're a Salsa client. We have emailing, direct mail, text message. Those are all different ways that you're able to engage with supporter via communication. And it's important to, again, keep in mind, not all supporters should be getting the exact same message all the time. Segmenting and targeting. And that's where your kind of data analytics come into play. So running reports to see where these supporters fit into whatever profiles you make up for supporters, and then that's how you should be engaging with them. Do these supporters prefer text messaging as opposed to email? Since we're all getting tons of email these days, is text messaging kind of the next phase of that to get more in front of supporters and get their attention faster? Possibly. I think that there's still some reporting to do on that, but I do see more and more organizations using texting. So that should be interesting. But direct mail, another one, I think the older generation, but not necessarily. That would be something that your organization has to consider to figure out, do we still have a part of our client or our supporter base that prefers direct mail? And then what's the messaging for them? And email, of course, I think this one is the most popular. So you can see all different platforms offer emailing. You have different things that you can test out with emailing, which is pretty cool. The A/B testing, seeing which subject lines work. That's a neat feature if you're in the market for an email communications tool, I would see what kind of tools they have available for you to be able to do some testing with your supporter base to help you figure out the segmentation and the targeting. And then in sort of the email realm, we've got the marketing automation, which helps you to continually engage with your supporters. And the automation part of this is really key with email series because you can set it and forget it. So if you're not familiar with email series, they're like drip campaigns. And essentially you write up your emails ahead of time, and people, your supporters, can fall into those email series and kind of start on this track. And what that is they might get one email on Wednesday that has a little story, and then 2 days later they're followed up with follow-up from that story, and then maybe there's an ask in that email: donate to this shelter or donate to this pet. And then maybe there's a third email in that series that they get 5 days later, updating them on the campaign, how is it going. But those would all be kind of pre-composed pretty much ahead of time. You can always go in and edit them, but that makes it really easy on the engage piece to keep your supporters interested, hearing from you regularly, as opposed to just hearing from you when they donate or when they volunteer for your organization. Petitions are also a good one, especially in an election year, which is getting pretty interesting. Petitions are a good way to engage with your supporters. It's kind of a low ask, right? We're not asking for any money, not really asking for them to go out and do something. It's, signing an online petition. And then of course, sign up forms too. Sign up forms to be on a newsletter list, maybe sign up forms to be on a committee that you might be starting. Those are some things that we've seen in the past, but those will help engage your supporters. Again, people want to be hearing from the organizations that they've talked to or done something with in the past, and I think it's important to remember about the engage piece, and that engage piece should be ongoing throughout the life cycle of the supporter. You don't want to only be engaging with them when they actually do something for you, like give you money. And the key here is to reach supporters where they want to interact. Just putting this out here again, I think it's a good slide to reference. Just kind of keeping in mind that our supporters are different. People prefer different modes of communication based on what they've done in the past. There we go. And the last piece of the life cycle at the high level is what is the next ask, converting them. You can kind of think of it as like moving them up the ladder. And I have some examples here on the right-hand side. So for example, if someone signed up to be on your newsletter list, maybe you ask them to sign a petition. Like we said previously, those are pretty low. I think most people, if they sign up to be on your newsletter, okay, they're interested in what you have to say. Maybe you can get them to agree to some kind of bill that you're trying to get passed or not to get passed. So a petition might be a way to get them engaged and kind of convert them to the next levels if they become petition signers. Or you might ask them to share something on social. Again, kind of keeping it at the same level of, the low end of the ask. Sharing on social media gets you in front of their network too, which is a way that you can increase, your visibility too. Their friends and family are seeing those posts. They might land on your page, and then who knows where it goes after that. Another example is for someone who might have volunteered at an event. If they're volunteering, obviously, they're committed to some level at helping your organization. So you might ask them for a donation, and that might be actually a part of an email series that you put together. Maybe you take all your volunteers from a previous event and say, we're not doing events this year for obvious reasons. We really appreciated the time that you put into helping make our event a success. In lieu of sharing your time, maybe you could donate whatever amount you think is worth, or you could throw out an amount there too. That's one thing I've seen a tactic used by some of our organizations, and I kind of like that. I think that that's appropriate for today too. You could also ask them to host an online event, sort of like volunteering, what they've done in the past, but maybe they want to host an online event like a happy hour, or you see people do all kinds of creative things different types of tasks that they're doing. I saw one organization had a few of their board members host these online events where they were just doing little putt-putt golf in their house, and they had a video on so you could see them, and they had chat, and their friends and family were donating. So it's fun. It benefits the organization that they're involved with. So I like that idea too, helping to convert donors, but then also converting past events that you've done to make them virtual with a little spin on them too. And then another way that you can convert supporters and move them up to the next level, if they've made a donation, which is great, ask them to run a peer-to-peer event. I think that is higher on the tier if you're asking one of your supporters to actually be a fundraiser for your organization. They can put together any type of event, and that would be up to the organization to decide if you want your supporters to have that control. But you can kind of think of this as like the GoFundMe pages. Maybe they want to dedicate their birthday to your organization, so you could consider that a peer-to-peer event where they're just running for one day or they're running for a week. Friends and family are donating to their page, which is really donating to the organization, and then that supporter is doing whatever they want to do, run 5 miles, or just celebrating their birthday. They can do that. And also asking for a larger donation. Of course, that's kind of the obvious thing when you're talking about converting donors, is moving them up to the next giving tier. There is a tool out there, and actually it could be manual. Salsa Engage actually has this built in. It's called the Next Suggested Gift. And if you know a supporter's previous giving history, you can come up with some sort of spreadsheet and calculation to say, let's ask everyone for 5% more than what they've given in the past. So you can do that manually in Salsa Engage, and I'm sure in other programs too, you can do that automatically, where you just say, the recipient of this email asks them for 5% of what they've given before, so long as that program knows what they've given before. But that's another way to convert donors. Definitely acknowledge what they've given in the past. So if you're writing an email, it should say something like, thank you so much for your most recent donation of $100. Could you give 110 or 115? Definitely acknowledging the fact that they've given to you before is very, very important, but a tactic that you can use to convert them donors would be to move them up and ask them for a larger gift. Okay. And the next slide here, just talking about ways that you can connect with supporters. Engage does let you do all of this. So I know we have some Salsa clients on today's presentation. So thinking about how you're able to fundraise differently, letters, text messaging, advocating, just all the ways that your supporters might want to interact with you. If you're able to, you should offer those ways for them to help your organization, whether that's just signing a petition or donating. And it's even better when you have, one system that can do a lot of these things. That's important to keep in mind.
So I'm going to interrupt here really quickly. We've got a question from Stephanie, and her question is, can Salsa Engage pull giving history from the CRM for next suggested gift amounts, or are you only able to pull online gifts into emails?
Yes, so you are able to pull data that lives in the CRM. So if you are using the combined platform that Salsa offers, which is Salsa CRM plus Salsa Engage, and you're sending out an email via Salsa Engage, and you know that they've given you money in the past that was offline. So if it's offline, it doesn't live in Salsa Engage, it's living in the database. In Salsa Engage, there's actually a drop down where figuring this, you would say, consider the information in Salsa CRM as well. So the answer to that is yes, the former half of that is true. You can pull in data from the CRM to calculate the next suggested gift in Engage. Good question. So back on this, and let me know if there are any other questions too, Vinu. I'm happy to answer those. it's a team effort. It's not just, the development team or the fundraising team is in charge of managing the supporter life cycle. And I think that's a piece of it that in many organizations, this is the case. But as we have seen throughout the presentation, the way that you connect with supporters, the way that you engage with supporters and convert them, it could really happen anywhere in any setting, honestly. So it's important for all members of the organization to be familiar with this concept of managing the supporter lifecycle, the fact that it doesn't stop and it keeps going. And at the center of it, right, it's retaining donors. I don't know the stat off the top of my head, but I know that it costs more to get a new supporter as opposed to just maintaining an existing supporter that has already shown interest and is invested to some degree to your organization. And so I think, what people say is that it's a lot better for organizations to work on this cycle to keep supporters that they already have while also getting new supporters through this convert piece of the cycle, no matter how they come in through them. But again, a team effort that everyone should be considering. And then this piece here is really just another way to kind of think about it. Everyone's familiar with the who, what, when, where, why concept. But as you manage your supporters and you start to make the segments and the targets and the process flows that you'll use as a base to manage the supporter lifecycle, these are the things that you can consider. So who are your supporters? Volunteers, board members, people who have signed petitions. What is important to those supporters? What subject matter are you going to be talking with them about? What do they care about? When, timing preference, this is a little bit more difficult to determine, and there are many articles on when the best time to reach out to your supporters are, when do people open emails. I know that texting now it's much more interruptive. So when you see your phone light up, right, you go and look at who's texting me, who is this number, and so you have their attention right away, as opposed to email. And when are people opening emails? Is it before they go to work? Is it when they come home from work? Those things like that. Where and how communication type. What do your supporters prefer? Do they prefer email communication? Do they prefer social media communication on updates of events that you're doing or different types of campaigns you're running? And the importance of why you're doing this, right? Why do your supporters care? And it actually might be different for supporters. Of course, you might have people who are using your services, like we said in the beginning. So to them, you're a little bit more important in a different way that you might be someone who's just donating to your organization, or maybe just has a friend or a family member who benefits from your services. But keep that in mind too. Some people might have level of importance of your organization different in their minds, just depending on how they're interacting with you. And then the kind of last slide here, talking about what kind of tools it's important to consider when you're looking to manage the supporter lifecycle. You have online engagement and offline engagement. I think most organizations are doing the online engagement too, but that's not to say that offline engagement has gone away or isn't important anymore. So you want to make sure that you're using things like marketing automation, email, social media is a big piece of this now too. Online donations, peer-to-peer fundraising, advocacy, so that's all the online stuff, and that helps you engage and convert your supporters in managing the life cycle. And then on the right-hand side, the offline engagement, the reports that you're running, tracking donations, cultivation to help move those supporters into different groups, and of course, querying your data so you can start to segment those people based on the information that you know. And there are all different types of platforms that do that. Even better if you find one that does all of it. Okay, so that is today's presentation. I hope that there are some questions. So thanks everybody for joining us today.
So everyone, we do have a couple of questions here, but before I get into those, if you do have any questions, again, feel free to put that in the chat box right here and we'll get to them. Barbara did have a question for you, Rachel. It's, can we run reports using Salsa CRM plus Salsa Engage to calculate cost to acquire new supporters or donors?
Sure, yes. So you will run those reports in Salsa CRM. So Salsa CRM is the database of record. And that's to say too, maybe you aren't a Salsa client, maybe you're using Salesforce or you're using something like that paired with Salsa Engage. So Salsa Engage is meant to be tied to a database. In this case, it's Salsa CRM. So Engage is sending the online information about your supporters to the CRM. So if you're going to be running those reports, run them in the CRM so that you're taking into consideration the offline information too. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if we have any built-in queries in the CRM, and I am not sure about that, Barbara. You could reach out to our support team, but if you're familiar with the query builder inside of Salsa CRM, there are some pre-built queries that Salsa just builds, and they're in all of the Salsa CRM accounts. Take a look at those if you haven't. You might be able to modify one of those pre-built reports to take other factors into consideration, but that's what I would do. And in the CRM, you are taking data from Engage, so it should be the whole picture of what it costs to keep that donor or acquire that donor.
You know, Rachel, I think one of the most interesting things I've learned from our clients that are using Salsa and they're using Salesforce as well is that a lot of times organizations will have custom objects built within Salesforce and then also their customization within Salsa and making those two bridge. And so there's this need to, even if there are reports that are already built, you still have to customize it for what you need and what you're trying to get out of it. And especially it can be kind of tricky with custom objects, but it can be done. It's just a matter of spending the time to figure that piece out.
Yeah, yep, definitely. I think the heavy lift is figuring out what you need to take into consideration. What do you even need to put in the report? And then, obviously making sure that it's right. I think once you kind of have your base down and your report is there, it can always be tweaked in the future. You can save those reports so you can continually run them. But I would agree there's almost always some customization that has to be put into those reports.
You know, I liked really how you really segmented the different types of supporters that an organization may have. I remember when I first started my career in nonprofit, and this is way before CRMs were really built out, and we were tracking things by paper sign-up forms and whatnot. And we really worked in silos, right? The volunteers worked within one department, fundraising was a different one, major gifts was a different one. So it's great to see all of this information being able to come under one roof and being able to do some of these analytics. What would you say, for someone that isn't on a CRM or isn't with Salsa yet, what is the first step that you would recommend for people to say, this is what I need to do in order to get ready to use something like Salsa or even Salesforce, because in essence, it's all the same foundation.
Yeah, and it depends on what your organization's needs are. Budget constraints are certainly a thing to think about, and resources that you have internally. That would be probably the first thing that I would think about is what can we handle? Am I a one-person shop, volunteer, working part-time? You probably need something with a lot of automation and very easy to pick up. Customization, or maybe something that's just out of the box too might work for you. So that's something to consider if you're just starting out looking at programs to help you manage your nonprofit. What resources do you have? And then I would also make a list of your needs. So that would include things like I need to be able to process donations online. I need the ability to send paper or direct mail letters or thank you letters. I need the ability to do advocacy. I would actually write those down. I'm a big pen and paper person, although I've tried multiple times to get away from that. I've given up. I'm just a pen and paper person. So I would write down exactly what my needs are. And It's difficult, because Google, once you Google something, you've got a flood of ads coming your way, and it can get kind of confusing. But if you just keep to the resources that you have and the needs that you have, and just kind of put your blinders on so that you focus on exactly what you need and you don't overbuy something that's just more than what you can handle, that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, and and also to throw in there, I've seen organizations come across through the Aplusify portal and just kind of say, we want to do it all. We have all of these integrations. We want to do it all, and it seems like it's just too much. And there's value in stepping back and starting from the basics of, what data do you have, and what do you need to supplement that data, and exactly like you said, what do you want to do with it, and taking it from there. We definitely, we love integrations. We love software's talking to each other, building reports, but at the end of the day, if the data's not there and the mission and the goals for your data and for what you're trying to accomplish isn't there, it just makes it more difficult. So Rachel, I have another question for you here. In terms of, everything that's been going on these past few months with the pandemic, what are you seeing organizations do to, be more efficient, or even from a CRM communication standpoint, what are you seeing organizations do differently?
Sure. So when working with partners, I'm in a little bit of a unique position here, because I get to see how clients are, changing the way that they're using. In our case, I get to see Salsa Engage, but then also what they're asking for to do with these communication platforms. And so I'm connecting them with partners that we have networked with, Aplusify being one of them. And so what I'm seeing nonprofits do, and kind of this turn of events, is and I've heard this term before, I can't remember from where, so I don't want to take credit for it, but it's it's the pivot, not pause concept, right? So everyone has said, okay, now we're in a different environment. How do we still go towards our mission without putting everything on pause, right? We're just pivoting and taking things in a little bit of a different direction. People are doing a lot more online communication, so emailing has gone up. We are seeing texting functionality also increase here, which is great. Like I mentioned, the texting piece of it is just a different channel. It's a new way for organizations to get in touch with their supporters more immediately. It's that interruptive type communication that we're seeing now, which, is working for now. So hopefully that continues. And then organizations just doing creative things with their events. We've really liked the organizations that have come up with ways to take their in-person events and turn them into peer-to-peer events. So in Salsa Engage, you can do that. Offer to have your supporters run their own peer-to-peer event. And so that's what we've seen people do, the pivot, not pause concept. That seems to be working for them. I do definitely see the resilience of our nonprofits, and I've been really amazed at the way that some organizations have just gone really unique in the way that they're continuing to service their supporters and then use to the best of their capability the technology that they have.
Yeah, I'm really curious about the texting feature that you have. I think we've gone in society from texting for being, emergency use to just transactional communication, and now really being as a marketing communication tool. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how that's kind of managed in Salsa, especially, the opting in and preferences, because I know everyone has their own different preference of how they use text, and how do you make sure you don't overreach, you don't overstep and misuse the text?
That is certainly something to consider. You can't just start texting all of your supporters, even if you have their cell phone number in your database, and that's a legal thing. So Engage does have texting functionality. So if you are a Salsa client, maybe you have texting, maybe you don't. Or if you are a client of another platform, hopefully they offer texting to you. There are actually two types of text, if you will. There's broadcast text, which is the equivalent of like an email blast where you can get a group of your supporters and send them a mass text. And then the other type of texting is text to initiate. And those are the ones that you've probably seen as a consumer, where you could text a keyword to a phone number, right? Like text educate to 56285, and then you get a link back and you can register for an event or donate. So there's broadcast text and there's text to initiate. And one of the things that you have to consider before you decide that you're going to do that is you do have to get consent from the supporter that you can text them. And one of the ways that we've seen clients do that, and it's built in, this is speaking from the Salsa perspective, is on all of your forms, all of your activity forms, there's a checkbox that you can put at the bottom of those forms that opts them into texting, just like how they opt into email, for example. So you could have the checkbox there at the end with a text that says, I'm opting into the SMS text messaging, and it says the standard language there, but put those, if you're interested in that and you do move forward, you'll want to start adding that consent feature to sign-up forms, fundraising pages. You could even do a campaign around it, so you can create your own sign-up form that's specifically around signing up to get text message communications from your organization. Share that on social media. And so you can't just start, texting everybody. That would be the easy way. You do have to get them to say, yes, I do permit you to text me, and this is the phone number that I'd like you to text me at.
Consent is so important, because that could be the way you lose a supporter and cut that bridge. And it goes back to what you were saying in terms of retention. It's much more cost effective to retain your supporters rather than trying to find a new one. So definitely
a campaign around that too. I recently, just as my personal life, have got in an email campaign, I'm assuming it is, that says, hey, do you still even want to hear from us? Maybe I didn't open their emails for a while. It was some shopping store, but I actually did look at that and I said, yes, I do still want to hear from you. Let me update my preferences. I don't want an email from you every day, but once a week is okay. And that's, those re-engaging campaigns that you can do with supporters is a way to keep that retention strong, so that you know that you're still communicating with people that want to hear from you on that. And I'm sure that there are webinars and papers about doing those retention campaigns and how best to go about those. But that is important too, to make sure that you're still communicating with that supporter how they preferred you to communicate with them, 6 months ago or 12 months ago.
Another question I have for you here is, if you're an organization and you've got limitations to your technical capacity, whether it's actually physically the number of bodies that can do the work, or the limitation to the technical knowledge, what do you recommend, in terms of resources that organizations can turn to get help to add that capacity, whether it's knowledge or staffing?
There's actually a really great tool out there. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's called Zapier. Zapier is a marketplace, and they have all different types of programs. There are lots of nonprofit programs on there too. Salsa is one of them, but there are thousands. I think there's like 2,000 programs on the Zapier marketplace. So if you're an organization that isn't so tech savvy, maybe you just don't have those resources, I would look into tools like Zapier that allow you to make connections between the different platforms that you're using. Like Google Sheets is on there and it's free. So it helps you manage that data. But you can use programs like that to make your day-to-day tasks that you're doing more automated. And Zapier does have a free version, which is really nice. Their pricing isn't too outrageous. I would take a look. It's Zapier, Zapier. And so if you're an organization that's kind of strapped with budget stuff, but you're still looking for ways to consolidate or make things a little bit easier, I would look into that for sure.
Yeah, I know we use Zapier for a few clients just to automate workflows, transition data, do triggers. There's all sorts of different functionalities in Zapier. And also, I know that in the realm of nonprofits and talking about capacity, I think we've all, we try to do more with less, or have our staff do, spend more time on working on a project. And sometimes the easier road and the most cost-effective road is to look at bringing in outside help, someone that already knows how to work with the platforms, already understands how the tech side of things work. And it is a little bit of a plug for Aplusify, but not just for us, that those resources can exist out there in your supporter groups. It can exist as a third-party consultants or service providers. But definitely think about, money is, you always want to be cost conscious, especially as a nonprofit. But with that also comes, do you want to spend 10 hours researching for a project, a technical project that may be above your staff's or even your own capabilities? Or is that something that you can turn to someone else to help you out with that could do it much more cost effectively? So keep that just in the back of your mind. It's just a resource that you can turn to. And someone was asking for Zapier, the spelling of it, and you've got it correct, Jesse, but I will spell it in here just to make sure in the chat section. And it is Zapier, Z-A-P-I-E-R.
Yeah,
it's
great.
a great tool.
I use it to help me manage my own tasks here working for Salsa. I'm a big fan. I'm really happy that Salsa's on there too, because I think it's beneficial.
Definitely. So before we leave today, again, like I told everyone, if you have any other questions we haven't addressed today, definitely you can email those over to Rachel or I. We will be sending out this recording out to you in a couple of days. Just give us time to kind of tweak it, make it nice and pretty. I do want to invite you, let me pull up my screen really quick. I do want to invite you to our next webinar. And I can show you if my computer will let me. We have this next webinar. It's part 2 of our series with Salsa. It's more on the technical side. So we will actually have our Chief Operating Officer, Neeraj Garg, join us with Rachel and talking about how to integrate Salsa with Salesforce. So that will be Wednesday, August 26th at 1 p.m. and we can send that invitation out to you. Definitely will be more on the technical side. So if you have your questions ready, Neeraj and Rachel will be there to help you. Before we leave today, Rachel, is there one piece of advice that you'd like to share with everyone?
Sure. So I think that my one piece of advice for organizations, I guess this is sort of coronavirus related, although I sometimes hate to do that, but I will say keep being resilient, keep being creative in the ways that you guys are handling everything that we're going through right now. Like I said, here at Salsa, I'm amazed at what I see clients do and come up with. You guys are awesome. So, and if you have any cool stories to share with us that you want us to promote, don't hesitate to let us know. We're always looking for ways that we can, share the success that people have with Salsa and the other programs that you're using. We do social media. We'll do a write-up on you. But I think sharing that information is helpful for other organizations too. It might inspire them to do something the way that you did it or whatever it might be. But I would say keep being resilient, keep being creative. What you guys are doing is working, and we're proud to help you in any way that we can reach those goals still.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Rachel, for joining us today. Thank you everyone for joining us. We've loved having you here. Again, hope you can join us for our next webinar. And if that one doesn't suit your schedule, we always do provide the recordings. Also check out our website. We have a lot of other different types of webinars that are out there, some more technical, some that give you overviews just to help with donors, volunteers. Check out our listing at aplusify.com/webinars. Again, thank you everyone. Stay safe and stay healthy. We'll see you next time.